Find the perimeter of this triangle. In order to find the perimeter of this triangle, we need to find the length of all three sides. And then we can add those three lengths and we'll have the perimeter. But in order to find the length of these three sides, we need to find out what x equals. And to figure out what x equals, we need an equation. So the equation that we're going to write is going to come from the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem says that the leg squared plus the other leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared in a right triangle. In other words, x minus 1 squared plus x plus 2 squared equals x plus 5 squared. Now, this is a quadratic equation because of these x squareds. In order to solve this quadratic equation, I'm going to expand these binomials and try to simplify and get the equation in standard form. Well, what do I mean by that exactly? So to expand these binomials, x minus 1 squared means x minus 1 times x minus 1. And x plus 2 squared means x plus 2 times x plus 2. And x plus 5 squared is x plus 5 times x plus 5. Now, to multiply these binomials together, we need to use the distributive property. We need to multiply, first of all, the x times the x, and then the x times the minus 1 times the x, and the minus 1 times the minus 1. So x times x is x squared. X times minus 1 is minus 1x. Minus 1 times x is minus another x, and minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. So if we do the same process for these two binomials and these two binomials, we get x squared plus 2x plus another 2x plus 4 equals x squared plus 5x plus another 5x plus 25. Now, you might notice that if you simplify just these terms here, we get x squared minus 2x plus 1. If we simplify these terms, we get x squared plus 4x plus 4. And if we simplify these terms, we get x squared plus 10x plus 25. Once you are experienced in expanding binomials, you might be able to skip from this step all the way to this step. You'll notice that when you square a binomial, you're going to get an x squared, and this constant here squared, and this term is twice, it's twice this number times x. In any case, let's continue to simplify. So, on the left side, we have x squared plus another x squared, which is 2x squared. We have minus 2x plus 4x, which is plus 2x. And we have 1 plus 1, which is 5. And the right side remains the same. Now, in order to solve this quadratic equation, we need to get one side equal to 0. I'll do that by subtracting all of the terms from the right side from both sides of the equation. So in other words, I'll subtract x squared from both sides, I'll subtract 10x from both sides, and I'll subtract 25 from both sides. If we do that, we get 2x squared minus 1x squared, which is x squared. We have 2x minus 10x, which is minus 8x. This should be minus 25. We have 5 minus 25, which is minus 20. And on the right side, we will be left with 0. Now this quadratic equation is in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And why don't we see if we can factor this? You will see that this factors into, let's see here, one of these would have to be plus and one of these would have to be minus, because a positive times a negative will give us a negative here. And if we made this a minus 10 and a plus 2, then the outside terms would give us minus 10x, the inside terms would give us plus 2x, and minus 10x plus 2x is minus 8x. So now if we use the zero product property, either x plus 2 has to equal 0, or x minus 10 has to equal 0, which means x can equal negative 2 or 10. Now, let's go back to our diagram. We see that our lengths are these three expressions, x plus 5, x plus 2, and x minus 1. We got two values for x. Those two possible values for x were x equals negative 2 and x equals 10. But you will notice that if you substitute x equals negative 2 into this expression, we would get a negative length, which obviously couldn't happen. So, in fact, the x equals negative 2 is not really a solution to this problem. Even though x equals negative 2 would make this equation true, it wouldn't make this diagram make any sense. So our x has to equal 10. So our goal is to find the perimeter. So if x equals 10, this side would be 10 plus 5, which is 15. This side would be 10 plus 2, which is 12. And this side would be 10 minus 1, which is 9. So, for our final answer, which is the perimeter would equal 15 plus 12 plus 9. 15 plus 12 is 27. 27 plus 9 is 36. So our final answer, which is the perimeter of the triangle, is 36. So just to recap, what we did in this problem was we took a right triangle and we used the Pythagorean Theorem in order to write this equation. We then used our algebra skills to simplify that equation and get it into standard form here. Then we used our factoring skills and got two possible values for x, but we noticed since if x equals negative 2, this length would be negative, which doesn't make any sense. We can eliminate that solution, which narrows down our solution to just x equals 10, and then we substitute it to find the length of these three sides, added the length of those three sides to find the perimeter.